Actually, gentlemen, this revolutionary AI algorithm was developed entirely by me, Marcus Whitfield, founder and chief technology officer of Whitfield Innovations. Lily Chen sat frozen in the back corner of the conference room, watching her business partner of 6 years present her invention to a room full of Silicon Valley investors. Her algorithm, her code, her sleepless nights, her breakthrough that would revolutionize predictive healthcare technology and save millions of lives. Marcus stood at the front of the glass-walled boardroom on the 42nd floor, his tailored Tom Ford suit catching the morning light, clicking through her presentation slides with the confidence of someone who truly believed he deserved to be there. The 12 venture capitalists leaned forward, captivated, checkbooks practically already open. The market valuation we're projecting is conservative at $10 million for the initial rollout. Marcus continued smoothly. But within 3 years, we're looking at potential acquisition offers in the $50 to $100 million range from companies like Google Health or IBM Watson. Lily's fingers tightened around her phone hidden beneath the table. The recording app had been running for 17 minutes. Every word, every lie, every theft happening in real time. My name is Lily Chen, and 6 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I trusted Marcus Whitfield. At 32 years old, Lily had already earned her PhD in computer science from MIT, published groundbreaking research on machine learning applications in medical diagnostics, and developed an algorithm that could predict patient health crises up to 72 hours before they occurred with 96% accuracy. She wasn't just smart. She was brilliant. The kind of brilliant that made people uncomfortable because it didn't fit their preconceived notions about who gets to be a genius in Silicon Valley. Marcus Whitfield, on the other hand, was a Stanford MBA with family money, venture capital connections, and the kind of face that made investors feel comfortable handing over millions. When they'd met at a tech conference in San Francisco, he'd approached her with what seemed like the perfect pitch. "You've got the brains. I've got the business expertise and the network. Together we'll build something revolutionary." She'd believed him. They'd formed Whitfield Innovations as 50-50 partners. She'd develop the technology. He'd handle fundraising, operations, and business development. It seemed fair. It seemed like partnership. That was before the subtle comments started. Before the meeting she wasn't invited to. Before her name started disappearing from internal documents. Before Marcus began introducing himself as the founder instead of co-founder. 3 months ago, Lily had noticed something disturbing. She'd logged into the company's GitHub repository at 2 a.m., unable to sleep, wanting to review some code, and found Marcus accessing her private development files. Files she'd specifically kept locked. Files containing the final version of the algorithm she hadn't shared with anyone yet. She'd said nothing. Just watched. Just documented. Just started recording everything. 2 months ago, Marcus had hired Amanda Stevenson as their new chief operating officer. Harvard Business School graduate, former McKinsey consultant, blonde, polished, and immediately dismissive of Lily in a way that was too subtle to call out but too consistent to ignore. In meetings, Amanda would talk over Lily, redirect questions away from her, and consistently refer to Marcus's vision when discussing technology that Lily had created. 1 month ago, Lily had walked past Marcus's office at 11 p.m. and heard him on a phone call. "Don't worry about the Chinese girl. She's the engineer, not the inventor. Once we close this funding round, we'll restructure. She'd be easy to phase out. The Chinese girl." After 6 years of partnership, after building something revolutionary together, that's what she was to him. Lily had stood outside that office door, listening to Marcus and Amanda laugh about how investors would never believe someone who looked like her could have developed such sophisticated technology. How the narrative would be so much cleaner with Marcus as the solo genius founder. How her accent made her seem less credible in pitch meetings. She'd recorded that conversation too. Now, sitting in this conference room, watching Marcus sell her life's work to investors who had no idea they were funding intellectual property theft, Lily felt something crystallize inside her. Not anger, not hurt. Something colder. Something sharper. Strategic clarity. "Mr. Whitfield," one of the investors interrupted, "this is remarkable work. But I have to ask, you mentioned having a technical co-founder when we first met. Where is she today?" Marcus's smile didn't falter. Ah yes, Lily Chen. Brilliant engineer. But unfortunately, she's decided to pursue other opportunities. You know how it is with technical people, they get restless, want to move on to the next shiny project. She'll be leaving the company at the end of the month. Lily's leaving. Not we've decided to part ways. Not she's choosing to leave. Just ... she's leaving. As if it were already decided. As if she'd agreed. She hadn't agreed to anything. Will there be any intellectual property concerns with her departure? Another investor asked. This was the moment Amanda leaned forward. Her voice smooth and practiced. All IP developed during company time is company property per our operating agreement. Miss Chun has no ownership claims to any technology. Everything was developed under Marcus's direct supervision and strategic direction. Lies. Complete, documented lies. The operating agreement they were referencing wasn't the original one Lily had signed. She'd discovered 2 weeks ago that Marcus had filed an amended version with the state, backdated by 18 months, that stripped her of IP rights and reduced her equity from 50% to 8%. Her signature on those documents? Forged. She had the original agreements. She had the forensic analysis proving the forgery. She had timestamps showing when the fake documents were created. She had everything, but she said nothing. Just sat there, watching Marcus collect verbal commitments for $8.2 million in Series A funding for her algorithm. Just kept her phone recording. Just waited. Because Lily Chun hadn't spent 6 years building revolutionary technology only to be erased by mediocre men who thought her intelligence was theirs for the taking. She hadn't survived being the only black woman in every classroom from undergrad through her PhD. Hadn't pushed through every microaggression and lowered expectation and surprised expression when she spoke, just to let someone steal her life's work. She was going to let them think they'd won. Let them celebrate. Let them relax. And then she was going to take everything from them in a way they'd never see coming. If this story of corporate theft and the revenge of someone they underestimated is hitting home, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because what happens next will restore your faith that sometimes the brilliant do win. Lily, Marcus said as the investors stood to leave, shaking his hand, congratulating him, completely ignoring her presence in the corner. Can you stay for a moment? Amanda and I need to discuss your transition out of the company. Lily looked up at him with an expression of calm acceptance that made something flicker across Marcus's face. Unease maybe. Or perhaps just confusion about why she wasn't fighting back, wasn't arguing, wasn't doing anything except quietly gathering her things. What Marcus didn't know was that, at that exact moment, a package was being delivered to the offices of Chun and Associates, the law firm Lily's sister Michelle ran. Inside that package, 6 years of documentation. Every email, every text message, every recorded conversation, every forged document. Every piece of evidence that would prove Marcus Whitfield and Amanda Stevenson had committed fraud, theft, and conspiracy. What Marcus also didn't know was that Lily had been approached 2 months ago by Marcus's biggest competitor, and she'd been having very productive conversations about what her algorithm might be worth to them. And what Marcus definitely didn't know was that the other opportunities Lily was supposedly pursuing, that wasn't a story he'd invented. That was reality. She'd already lined up something much bigger than anything Marcus could have imagined. But right now, in this moment, Marcus thought he'd won. Thought he'd successfully stolen her life's work, erased her contributions, and positioned himself as the genius inventor who'd revolutionize healthcare. He looked at Lily with barely concealed contempt, ready to formalize her removal from the company they'd built together, completely unaware that she'd been recording this entire meeting, documenting his theft in real time, and had already set in motion a plan that would leave him with nothing. Of course, Marcus, Lily said quietly, her voice steady. Let's talk about my transition. As Amanda closed the conference room door, sealing the 3 of them inside, Marcus pulled out a severance agreement he'd clearly prepared in advance. The terms were insulting: a 4-month salary, no equity payout, and a non-compete clause that would prevent Lily from working in healthcare technology for 3 years. He slid the papers across the table with a pen, his expression a mixture of satisfaction and something darker. Sign this today, and we'll make this easy for everyone. Fight it, and will bury you in legal fees you can't afford. Your choice. What neither Marcus nor Amanda noticed was the small recording device Lily had placed inside the decorative plant on the credenza behind them 3 hours earlier. Or the fact that she'd forwarded their entire email correspondence to her personal encrypted backup that morning. Or that she'd already filed preliminary paperwork with the patent office, establishing herself as the sole inventor of the algorithm they were trying to steal. Lily picked up the pen, and for just a moment she let herself imagine what it would feel like to sign away everything she'd worked for. To accept defeat. To let these people win simply because they had connections, and confidence and the audacity to believe they deserved what she'd created. Then she thought about every person who'd ever looked at her and assumed she was less capable because of how she looked. Every professor who'd been surprised by her intelligence. Every colleague who'd spoken slower, assuming she wouldn't understand. Every investor who directed technical questions to Marcus instead of her. She put down the pen. "Actually, Marcus," Lily said, standing up and gathering her phone, "I don't think I'll be signing anything today. But I'll tell you what I will be doing, ... double quotes. Actually, Marcus," Lily said, standing up and gathering her phone. "I don't think I'll be signing anything today. But I'll tell you what I will be doing, ... double quotes. Marcus's jaw tightened. The mask of professional courtesy slipped just enough to reveal the contempt underneath. "Excuse me? I'll be consulting with my attorney about the amended operating agreement you filed without my knowledge. The one with my forged signature. I'll also be reviewing the original patent applications, since I'm listed as the sole inventor on the provisional filing I submitted 8 months ago." The color drained from Amanda's face. Marcus stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You can't prove any of that. And even if you tried, do you have any idea how expensive litigation would be? How long it would take? We have investors now, Lily. Real money. You think anyone will believe you over us?" There it was. The threat wrapped in condescension, delivered with the absolute certainty of someone who'd never faced real consequences in his life. "We'll see," Lily said, walking toward the door. Amanda moved to block her path, arms crossed. "Before you leave, you need to surrender all company property. Laptop, access cards, any files you've taken home." "Files I've taken home?" Lily repeated slowly. "You mean the research I conducted? The algorithm I developed? The code I wrote at 3 a.m. in my apartment?" "Company time, company property," Marcus said, his voice sharp. "That's how this works. You don't get to walk out of here with anything." Lily looked at him for a long moment, memorizing the arrogance in his expression, the absolute belief that he held all the power in this room. She'd seen that look before, on the face of the venture capitalist who'd asked her in a meeting if she was the translator when she'd tried to present. On the tech journalist who'd published an article about Marcus Whitfield's revolutionary healthcare AI, without mentioning her name once. On every person who'd looked at her and decided she was lucky to be in the room, not essential to what happened there. "I'll have my company equipment couriered over tomorrow," Lily said, stepping around Amanda, "along with a formal response to your severance offer. Through my lawyer." She walked out before either of them could respond, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Her heartbeat steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. She didn't look back. Didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing any emotion on her face. The elevator ride down 42 floors felt like falling and flying at the same time. When Lily reached the parking garage, she sat in her 10-year-old Honda Civic, the car she'd bought in grad school and never replaced despite her salary, and finally let herself breathe. Her hands were shaking, not from fear. From the sheer effort of maintaining composure when every instinct screamed to fight back immediately, but immediate reactions were what they expected. What they were prepared for. Emotional outbursts they could use against her. Impulsive decisions they could exploit. Lily pulled out her phone and opened the recording app. 43 minutes of material. Every threat. Every admission. Every moment of them assuming she was powerless. She uploaded the file to her encrypted cloud backup, labeled it meeting_05_17_conference_room_B, and added it to the folder that now contained over 200 hours of documented evidence. Her phone buzzed. A text from her sister Michelle. Package received. We need to talk. Tonight. Another text. This one from Dr. James Morrison, Chief Technology Officer at Health Tech Solutions, Marcus's biggest competitor. Heard through the grapevine there might be changes at Whitfield. My offer still stands. Coffee tomorrow? Lily smiled. In Silicon Valley, information traveled fast. Marcus's investors might have signed commitment letters this morning, but by tomorrow, whispers would start circulating. Questions would be asked. Due diligence would suddenly seem more important. She started her car and drove to the small apartment in Mountain View she'd rented when she and Marcus first started the company. She'd never moved somewhere nicer, never upgraded. Despite Marcus constantly suggesting she invest in her image, she kept her expenses low, her savings high, and her financial independence intact. Because Lily had learned a long time ago that the only security that mattered was the security you built for yourself. She'd learned it at 19, when her parents' restaurant in San Francisco's Chinatown had been forced to close after a landlord tripled their rent overnight. She'd watched her father, a man who'd immigrated from Guangzhou with nothing and built a successful business over 20 years, lose everything because someone else controlled the property. Never let them own what you've built. Her father had told her the night they'd locked the restaurant doors for the last time. And never trust anyone who tells you they're doing you a favor by letting you succeed. She'd carried those words through undergrad at Berkeley, where her computer science professors had consistently assumed she was in the wrong classroom. Through MIT, where her PhD advisor had suggested she consider less ambitious research topics. Through every pitch meeting where investors had asked Marcus the technical questions and asked her if she'd like more coffee. Marcus thought he'd found an easy target. A brilliant engineer who didn't understand business. Someone who'd be grateful for the opportunity he was providing. Someone who wouldn't notice when he started erasing her contributions. He'd fundamentally misunderstood who he was dealing with. That evening, Lily sat in her sister's law office in downtown San Francisco, 6 years of documentation spread across the conference table. Michelle Chen was a partner at Chen & Associates, specializing in intellectual property litigation. She'd built her career defending inventors against corporate theft, and right now, she was looking at Lily's evidence with the focused intensity of a prosecutor building an airtight case. This is ... double quotes. Michelle paused, flipping through another email chain. This is one of the most well-documented cases of IP theft I've ever seen. You've been collecting this for how long? 6 months of active documentation. But I have materials going back to the beginning that establish my role as the primary inventor. Michelle pulled up the forged operating agreement on her laptop, comparing it to the original. The signature analysis alone would win this case. But combined with the recordings, the email evidence, the GitHub log showing you as the sole contributor to the core algorithm ... She looked up at her sister. Lily, you could destroy them. Completely. Criminally. That's the goal. It's going to get ugly. Marcus has family money. He'll hire expensive lawyers. This could take 2 years, maybe more. I have 2 years, Lily said calmly. What I don't have is my name on my own invention. What I don't have is credit for the work I did. And I'm not going to let him take that and build an empire on my brilliance while telling people I was just the engineer who couldn't hack it. Michelle smiled, the kind of smile that made opposing counsel nervous in depositions. Okay, then let's burn his world down. Legally, thoroughly, and publicly. They worked until 2 a.m., building the timeline, organizing the evidence, preparing the initial filing. When Lily finally drove home, exhausted but energized, she knew the real battle was about to begin. What she didn't know was that at that exact moment, Marcus was in his penthouse apartment in Soma, drinking expensive scotch with Amanda, celebrating what they thought was their victory. She actually thought she could threaten us. Marcus laughed, his words slightly slurred. With what? She's got no money for lawyers, no connections, no credibility. By the time she scrapes together enough to file something, we'll have closed the funding round and she'd be irrelevant. Amanda swirled her wine, staring out at the San Francisco skyline. I don't know, Marcus. She was too calm. Too collected. That recording comment ... paranoia? She's bluffing. Even if she recorded today's meeting, so what? We offered her a severance package. We're being generous. She's the one refusing to cooperate. But Amanda's instincts, honed by years of corporate warfare at McKinsey, were screaming that something was wrong. She'd seen that expression on Lily's face before. On the faces of competitors who were 3 moves ahead. On the faces of people who knew something you didn't. We should accelerate the timeline, Amanda said. Close the funding round this week instead of next month. Get the patents transferred to your name immediately. Make it harder for her to claim anything. Marcus nodded, his confidence returning. Smart. I'll call our attorney tomorrow. By Friday, everything will be locked down. Lily Chen will be nothing but a footnote in the company history. He raised his glass in a toast. Amanda clinked hers against it, but the unease in her stomach wouldn't go away. Because what neither of them knew was that Lily had already filed a provisional patent application for an improved version of the algorithm, one that made their stolen version obsolete. Or that she'd sent detailed documentation to 3 major tech journalists who specialized in exposing Silicon Valley fraud. Or that she'd scheduled meetings with 4 different venture capital firms, all of whom were very interested in funding a new company built around revolutionary healthcare AI developed by the actual inventor. Marcus thought he was ahead. Thought he'd successfully stolen her work and eliminated the threat she posed. He had no idea that Lily Chen had spent 6 months preparing for this exact moment. That every conversation, every meeting, every casual comment had been part of building an airtight case. That while he'd been congratulating himself on his cleverness, she'd been 3 steps ahead, documenting his crimes and preparing to expose him in a way that would end not just his company, but his entire reputation in Silicon Valley. The next morning, Marcus received an email that made his blood run cold. It was from Chun and Associates, marked Urgent Intellectual Property Dispute. Attached was a 40-page legal document outlining fraud allegations, IP theft claims, and a preliminary injunction request that would freeze all company operations pending investigation. He forwarded it to Amanda with 3 words. We have a problem. What he should have written was, we underestimated her completely. And now we're going to pay for it in ways we can't even imagine yet. But Marcus Whitfield still didn't understand who he was dealing with. Still thought this was a problem money and lawyers could solve. Still believed that people like him always won in the end. Lily Chen was about to teach him exactly how wrong he was. The legal letter hit Marcus's desk like a grenade, but what came next was worse. Silence. For 3 days, Lily Chen went completely dark. No responses to emails. No returned calls. Her LinkedIn profile disappeared. Her apartment appeared empty. It was as if she'd vanished from Silicon Valley entirely. Marcus should have been relieved. Instead, he was terrified. She's planning something, Amanda said, pacing Marcus's office on the 4th day. People don't just disappear unless they're building something we can't see. Or she realized she can't win and gave up. Marcus countered. But his voice lacked conviction. He'd barely slept since receiving that legal letter. His attorney, Richard fucking Caldwell from Morrison and Pierce, had reviewed the allegations and delivered news that made Marcus's stomach drop. If even half of this evidence exists, you're looking at fraud charges. Criminal, not just civil. Marcus had paid Caldwell's firm $50,000 just for that initial consultation. The number for a full defense? Somewhere between $500,000 and $2 million. Money he didn't have yet. Money that depended on closing the funding round. Money that would evaporate entirely if investors got spooked. We need to accelerate everything, Amanda said decisively. Call the investors. Tell them we want to close this week. Get the money in the bank before Lily can do anything to stop it. Marcus nodded, already reaching for his phone. But when he called the lead investor, Thomas Chen from Redwood Ventures, the response was not what he expected. Marcus, we need to talk. I've been hearing some concerning rumors. Questions about your co-founder situation. Questions about IP ownership. I'm going to need you to provide documentation proving you have clear title to the technology before we wire any funds. Marcus's throat went dry. Thomas, I can assure you, documentation, Marcus. Operating agreements, patent applications, development logs, everything. My legal team will review it. Should take about 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks for them to discover the forged signatures. 2 weeks for everything to fall apart. Marcus hung up and looked at Amanda. She got to them. Somehow, she got to the investors. What Marcus didn't know was that Lily hadn't contacted the investors at all. She didn't need to. She'd simply made one phone call to her former MIT advisor, Dr. Patricia Lin, who happened to sit on the advisory board of 3 major venture capital firms, including Redwood Ventures. One casual mention in a board meeting about concerning IP ownership questions at a portfolio company was all it took. Silicon Valley ran on reputation and rumors. Lily understood that better than Marcus ever would. While Marcus scrambled to provide documentation he couldn't fake quickly enough, Lily was across town in a health tech solutions conference room, sitting across from Dr. James Morrison and his team. "Let me make sure I understand correctly, Doctor," Morrison said, reviewing the documents Lily had provided. "You're the sole inventor of the predictive healthcare algorithm. You have documentation proving it. And you've developed an improved version that's 15% more accurate than what Whitfield is trying to sell." "Correct," Lily said calmly. "The version Marcus is shopping around is based on my 9-month-old prototype. I've been continuing development independently. The current version predicts not just cardiac events, but also stroke risk, sepsis probability, and early-stage cancer markers." The health tech team exchanged glances. This wasn't just valuable, this was revolutionary. "What are you looking for from us?" Dr. Morrison asked carefully. "Partnership, not employment. I want to maintain ownership of the IP. Health tech gets exclusive licensing rights for 10 years, with an option to renew. Revenue share, 60-40, with me retaining the larger percentage for the first 5 years. That's aggressive terms," one of the business development executives said. "It's fair terms," Lily corrected. "For technology you couldn't develop in-house in 10 years. Technology that will position health tech as the industry leader in predictive medicine. Technology that, as of this morning, has a provisional patent filed with my name as the sole inventor." Morrison leaned back, a slow smile spreading across his face. "You've already filed. 3 days ago. Before Marcus even knew I was planning to leave. The provisional establishes priority date. Anything he tries to file now will be derivative of my work. Does he know? Not yet. He will soon. Probably around the same time his investors demand proof of IP ownership he can't provide." Dr. Morrison laughed, the kind of laugh that held both admiration and a hint of fear. "Ms. Chun, you're not just smart. You're strategically brilliant. When can you start?" "I need 2 weeks to handle the legal situation with Whitfield. After that, I'm all yours." They shook hands. Lily walked out of Health Tech Solutions with a term sheet offering her $3 million in development funding, a $250,000 signing bonus, and partnership terms that would make her wealthy beyond anything Marcus had ever offered. But money wasn't the victory she wanted most. That same afternoon, Michelle called with news that made Lily smile for the first time in days. The forensic document analyst finished his review. "The forged signatures on the amended operating agreement are so obvious that he's willing to testify this was amateur-level fraud. Whoever did this used a digital signature stamp without adjusting for pressure variance or natural hand tremor. Meaning? Meaning we can prove in court that Marcus or someone working for him deliberately forged your signature to steal your equity and IP rights. That's not a civil dispute anymore, Lily. That's criminal fraud. That's potential jail time." Lily closed her eyes, letting the information settle. "What's our next move?" "We file the full complaint tomorrow. Fraud, IP theft, breach of fiduciary duty, conversion. We're also requesting an emergency hearing for a temporary restraining order that would freeze all Whitfield Innovations assets and prevent Marcus from transferring or selling any company property, including the algorithm." "How long until the hearing?" "Judge Carmichael's calendar has an opening next week. But Lily, once we file this, it becomes public record. The press will cover it. Your name will be everywhere. Are you ready for that?" Lily thought about every time someone had underestimated her. Every time someone had assumed she was less capable because of her gender or her race or her accent. Every time someone had taken credit for her ideas in meetings. Every investor who directed technical questions to Marcus instead of her. I'm ready. File it. While Lily built her case and secured her future, Marcus's world was quietly collapsing. The investors weren't just asking questions anymore. They were demanding answers he couldn't provide. The patent office had sent a notification about Lily's provisional filing, which his attorney explained meant she'd established legal priority for the invention. And Amanda had discovered something that made everything infinitely worse. Marcus, Amanda said, her voice shaking as she stood in his office doorway. We have a serious problem. I was reviewing the GitHub logs like our attorney requested, and Lily was the only contributor to the core algorithm. The only one. Your commits were all to front-end interface code and documentation. Nothing substantive. Nothing inventive. Marcus's face went white. That can't be right. It's right. And it gets worse. She made commits from her personal laptop at all hours. 2 a.m., 4 a.m., weekends. Most of the development happened outside our office, which means even if we claim company ownership, we can't prove she developed it on company time using company resources. So what are you saying? I'm saying we have no case. We stole technology we can't prove is ours. We forged documents to cover it up. And now she's got lawyers, evidence, and apparently a provisional patent that predates anything we've filed. Marcus sank into his chair, the reality finally crushing through his denial. What do? We settle. Fast. Before she destroys us publicly. But it was already too late for that. The next morning, the lawsuit hit the courts. By noon, it was on TechCrunch. By 3 p.m., it was trending on Twitter. By evening, every major tech publication had picked up the story. Female Asian engineer alleges IP theft. Fraud by white male co-founder. The narrative Marcus had worked so hard to build. The story of the brilliant Stanford MBA who'd revolutionized healthcare AI, shattered in a single news cycle. Replaced by a different story. A truer story. The story of Lily Chen, MIT PhD, actual inventor, fighting to reclaim what was stolen from her. Marcus's phone exploded with calls. Investors pulling out. Partners demanding explanations. Reporters asking for comment. His attorney telling him to say nothing, do nothing, don't make it worse. But Marcus, panicking, did exactly what Lily knew he would do. He tried to control the narrative. He posted on LinkedIn, I'm disappointed by these baseless allegations from a former employee. Whitfield Innovations has always valued all team contributions, but the core invention was developed under my leadership and vision. I look forward to resolving this matter quickly and continuing our mission. Former employee, not co-founder. Not partner, employee. The post lasted 45 minutes before his attorney made him delete it. But screenshots lived forever. Lily, reading the post from her sister's office, felt something cold and satisfied settle in her chest. He just made our case stronger. How? Michelle asked. He called me an employee. In writing. But every legal document establishing the company lists me as co-founder and equal partner. He just contradicted his own corporate filings in a public forum. That's called admission against interest. The jury is going to love it. Michelle grinned. You knew he'd do this. You knew he couldn't help himself. Marcus always thinks he's the smartest person in the room. That's his weakness. He doesn't know when to shut up. That evening, Lily received a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Miss Chun? A woman's voice, nervous. My name is Rebecca Park. I used to work at Whitfield Innovations. I left 6 months ago after Marcus tried to take credit for my work on the user interface. I saw the news today and I thought you should know. I have emails, lots of them, showing Marcus systematically erasing women's contributions and claiming credit for their work. If you want them, they're yours. Lily felt something shift. She wasn't alone in this. Marcus hadn't just stolen from her. He'd built his entire career on taking credit for other people's brilliance. Rebecca, Lily said quietly, I would very much like to see those emails, and I think I know a few other women who might want to see them too. By the end of the week, 3 more former Whitfield employees had contacted Michelle's office, all women. All engineers. All with stories of stolen credit, erased contributions, and systematic discrimination. What had started as an IP theft case was becoming something much bigger. A pattern of fraud. A culture of exploitation. A reckoning. Marcus, sitting in his attorney's office, finally understood what Lily had known from the beginning. This was never going to be settled quietly. This was going to be a public dismantling of everything he'd built on lies. How bad can this get? Marcus asked Caldwell. The attorney looked at him with something close to pity. The criminal exposure alone could be 5 to 10 years. The civil damages could bankrupt you.
And your reputation in Silicon Valley?
That's already gone. The question now is whether you want to fight this and lose everything, or settle and maybe walk away with something.
Marcus thought about fighting.
About hiring investigators to dig up dirt on Lily. About playing hardball the way he'd always played it. Then he thought about those recordings she'd mentioned. About the evidence she'd been collecting for 6 months. About the fact that she'd been 3 steps ahead this entire time. For the first time in his life, Marcus Whitfield realized he'd underestimated someone.
And it was going to cost him everything. But Lily Chen wasn't done yet. Not even close.
The emergency hearing took place on a Tuesday morning in San Francisco's Superior Court, Judge Linda Carmichael presiding. The courtroom was packed. Tech journalists lined the back rows. Former Whitfield employees sat in support of Lily. And at the plaintiff's table, Lily Chen sat next to her sister, wearing a simple navy suit, her expression calm and focused. At the defense table, Marcus looked like he hadn't slept in days. His expensive suit couldn't hide the panic in his eyes. Amanda sat beside him, her usual confidence replaced by barely concealed terror. Their attorney, Richard Caldwell, shuffled papers with the energy of a man who knew he was defending the indefensible. Judge Carmichael reviewed the filings with the efficiency of someone who'd seen every variety of Silicon Valley fraud. When she looked up, her expression was not encouraging for the defense. Mr. Caldwell, your client is accused of forging legal documents,
stealing intellectual property, and defrauding his business partner. The evidence Ms. Chen has provided is extensive. Would you like to present your defense?
Caldwell stood. Your Honor.
This is a dispute between business partners with different recollections of events. Mr. Whitfield maintains that all technology was developed collaboratively.
And Ms. Chen is simply unhappy with the equity distribution she agreed to. She agreed to? Judge Carmichael's eyebrow raised.
According to the forensic analysis, her signature on the amended operating agreement was forged. Are you disputing that finding?
Caldwell hesitated. We believe there may be questions about the methodology. I'll take that as a no. Ms. Chen, would you like to present your evidence? Michelle stood, connecting her laptop to the courtroom's display system. Your Honor,
what you're about to see is a systematic campaign of fraud spanning 6 months.
We have documentation of every step. The first image appeared on the screen. An email from Marcus to Amanda, dated 4 months prior. Need to figure out how to phase out LC without raising red flags. She's the only one who truly understands the algorithm, but investors won't take us seriously with her as the face of the company. Too ethnic, too female, too much of a diversity hire narrative. Marcus's face went ashen. Amanda closed her eyes. That's taken out of context. Caldwell started, but Judge Carmichael silenced him with a look. Michelle clicked to the next exhibit. A recording began to play, Marcus's voice filling the courtroom. Don't worry about the Chinese girl. She's the engineer, not the inventor. Once we close this funding round, we'll restructure. She'd be easy to phase out. Several journalists began typing frantically. One of the former Whitfield employees in the gallery whispered to her neighbor, loud enough to carry. He said the same thing about me. The evidence continued. Email after email showing Marcus instructing Amanda to remove Lily's name from presentations.
Text messages discussing how to manage the optics of having a female Asian co-founder. GitHub logs proving Lily wrote 96% of the algorithm's core code. Financial records showing Marcus had accessed company funds to pay for the forged documents.
And then came the recording from the conference room meeting with investors. All IP developed during company time is company property. Amanda's voice echoed through the courtroom.
Ms. Chen has no ownership claims to any technology.
Everything was developed under Marcus's direct supervision and strategic direction. Michelle paused the recording. That statement was made while Ms. Chen was present in the room, silently recording. At that moment, Mr. Whitfield was actively defrauding investors by misrepresenting ownership of technology he'd stolen. Judge Carmichael turned to Marcus. Mr. Whitfield, do you have anything to say? Marcus stood, his hands shaking.
Your Honor, this was all a misunderstanding.
Lily and I were partners.
Yes, but I provided the business strategy, the funding connections. The lies?
Judge Carmichael interrupted.
The forged documents. The systematic erasure of your co-founder's contributions.
You never meant to get caught. The judge's voice was ice. But Ms.
Chen documented everything. Every conversation. Every email.
Every moment you thought you were too powerful to be held accountable. She turned to Lily. Ms. Chen, what are you seeking from this court? Lily stood, her voice steady. I want what was always mine.
Full recognition as the sole inventor of the predictive healthcare algorithm.
Transfer of all patents and IP rights to my name.
Dissolution of Whitfield Innovations with assets divided according to the original partnership agreement, 50-50.
And a public acknowledgement from Mr. Whitfield that he committed fraud. That's insane, Marcus burst out.
You can't just destroy 6 years of work because you stole it?
Lily's voice cut through his protest like a blade.
Because you forged my signature. Because you told investors I was leaving when you were actually forcing me out.
Because you called me the Chinese girl who'd be easy to phase out. The courtroom was dead silent. I didn't destroy 6 years of work, Marcus. You did.
The moment you decided my intelligence was yours to exploit. The moment you thought I wouldn't notice. The moment you underestimated me so completely that you never imagined I'd fight back.
Marcus looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time understood the magnitude of his miscalculation. This wasn't someone scrambling to salvage scraps.
This was someone who'd planned every move, documented every crime, and waited patiently for exactly this moment.
Judge Carmichael made her ruling swiftly.
I'm granting the temporary restraining order.
All Whitfield Innovations assets are frozen effective immediately. The patents will be transferred to Ms. Chen pending further proceedings. And Mr. Whitfield, I'm referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for criminal investigation.
Fraud, forgery, and theft at this scale is not just a civil matter. Marcus collapsed into his chair.
Amanda put her face in her hands. Caldwell gathered his papers with the expression of someone mentally calculating how quickly he could withdraw from this case.
Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Lily. Cameras flashed.
Questions flew from every direction. Ms. Chen, how does it feel to win? What's next for you? Do you think Marcus Whitfield will face jail time?
Lily raised a hand, and the crowd quieted. When she spoke, her voice was clear and composed.
This was never about revenge, this was about truth. For 6 years, I built something revolutionary, something that could save lives. And someone tried to take it from me because they assumed I was too quiet, too grateful, too intimidated to fight back. They were wrong. She paused, meeting the cameras directly. To anyone watching who's ever had their work stolen, their contributions erased,
their intelligence exploited, document everything. Trust your instincts.
And never, ever let someone make you believe you're lucky to be in a room you built. The reporters erupted with follow-up questions, but Lily simply walked to her car. Her sister beside her, leaving Marcus to face the cameras alone. Marcus's statement to the press was a disaster.
Stammering, defensive, he tried to claim misunderstanding while reporters shouted questions about the forged documents and racist comments. By evening, the video had gone viral. By midnight, every major tech publication had published think pieces about Silicon Valley's culture of stealing from women and minorities. Marcus Whitfield's reputation was destroyed.
But the consequences were just beginning. Within 48 hours, the investors formally withdrew their commitments. The $8.2 million funding round evaporated. Health Tech Solutions announced they'd signed an exclusive partnership with renowned AI researcher Dr. Lily Chen for undisclosed terms.
3 more women came forward with allegations against Marcus. Stanford revoked an Alumni Achievement Award they'd given him 2 years prior.
Amanda Stevenson was fired from Whitfield Innovations by the board, who were desperately trying to distance themselves from the scandal. She couldn't find another position. Every company she applied to had already heard about her role in the fraud. Her carefully cultivated career, built on taking credit for other people's work, collapsed overnight. And Marcus? Marcus watched his company dissolve, his reputation crumble, and his future narrow to a single terrifying possibility: criminal prosecution. 6 months after the hearing, Lily stood in her new office at Chun Innovations, the company she'd founded with health tech's backing. On the wall hung her patent certificates, her name listed as sole inventor. On her desk sat a photo of her parents at their new restaurant, funded by Lily's signing bonus. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. Former tech CEO Marcus Whitfield pleads guilty to fraud. Sentenced to 18 months in federal prison. Lily read the article once, then deleted the notification. Marcus was no longer relevant to her story. He was just a cautionary tale about what happens when mediocre men try to steal brilliance they could never create themselves. If this story of someone taking back what was stolen has you fired up, make sure you're subscribed, because the final chapter will show you exactly what victory looks like when you refuse to be erased. She had work to do, lives to save, technology to perfect, and a legacy to build that no one could ever take from her again. 18 months after Marcus Whitfield entered federal prison, Lily Chen stood on the stage at the MedTech Innovation Summit in Boston, accepting the Breakthrough Innovator Award for her predictive healthcare algorithm that was now saving lives in 47 hospitals across the country. The algorithm that Marcus had tried to steal had evolved far beyond what he'd ever imagined. Under Lily's continued development, it now predicted patient crises with 98.7% accuracy, reducing preventable deaths by 34% in facilities that implemented it. Insurance companies were licensing it, medical schools were teaching it. The technology Lily had created in her tiny apartment at 3 a.m. was changing healthcare as fundamentally as the invention of antibiotics. Chun Innovations, her company, was valued at $47 million. She employed 32 people, most of them women and minorities who'd faced similar discrimination in tech. Rebecca Park, the first woman to contact her after the lawsuit, was now her chief operating officer. 3 other former Whitfield employees held leadership positions. "When someone tries to erase you," Lily said into the microphone, her voice carrying across the auditorium of 2,000 attendees, "they're betting that you'll believe their narrative instead of your own truth. They're betting you don't have the documentation, the patience, the strategic brilliance to take back what's yours." She paused, looking out at the audience where she could see young women, people of color, immigrants, all watching her with recognition in their eyes. Marcus Whitfield bet wrong. "And this award isn't just mine. It belongs to every person who's ever been called a diversity hire. Every engineer whose code was stolen. Every inventor whose ideas were presented by someone else in meetings. This is for all of us who refused to be footnotes in stories we wrote." The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Meanwhile, in a federal correctional facility in Lompoc, California, Marcus sat in an 8x10 cell, his Stanford MBA and family connections meaningless behind bars. His parents had stopped visiting after the first month. His friends had disappeared. Even Amanda, who'd avoided prison by cooperating with prosecutors, refused his calls. He'd lost everything. The company was dissolved, assets liquidated to pay legal fees and settlement costs. His penthouse was sold. His car was repossessed. The reputation he'd built his entire identity around was destroyed so completely that when people heard his name now, they immediately associated it with one thing: the man who tried to steal from Lily Chun. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd thought erasing Lily would elevate himself. Instead, he'd become permanently attached to her story, but as the villain. The cautionary tale. The example of everything wrong with Silicon Valley's culture of exploitation. In his cell at night, Marcus sometimes thought about that moment in the conference room when Lily had refused to sign the severance agreement. The calm in her eyes. The certainty. He'd thought it was fear. He'd completely missed that it was power. She'd known exactly what she was doing. Had probably known for months. While he'd been congratulating himself on his clever manipulation, She'd been building an airtight case that would destroy him legally, professionally, and personally.
He'd underestimated her completely, and it had cost him everything.
Amanda Stevenson fared only slightly better. Though she'd avoided prison by testifying against Marcus, her career was finished. No tech company would hire her. Her LinkedIn profile, once pristine with Harvard credentials and McKinsey experience, now came up in Google searches alongside articles about the Whitfield fraud case.
She'd moved back to Ohio, working a mid-level operations job at a manufacturing company. Her ambitions of Silicon Valley power permanently crushed.
Sometimes she saw news about Lily Chun's latest achievement and felt something bitter and sharp. Not quite regret. More like the painful understanding that she'd attached herself to the wrong person's intelligence,
and it had cost her the future she'd wanted. But Lily's victory extended far beyond personal vindication. The publicity from the case had sparked a broader reckoning in Silicon Valley. 3 major tech companies were now under investigation for similar IP theft from female and minority engineers. Stanford and MIT had revised their entrepreneurship programs to include sections on recognizing and preventing co-founder fraud. Venture capital firms had implemented new due diligence protocols specifically checking for IP ownership disputes. One case had changed an industry's practices.
One woman refusing to be silenced had created ripples that would protect countless others. Dr. Patricia Lin, Lily's former MIT advisor, now regularly used the case as a teaching example.
"Document everything," she told her graduate students.
"Trust is beautiful, but documentation is protection." Lily Chun saved herself because she understood that her brilliance needed to be provable,
not just real. The investors who'd almost funded Marcus's fraud found themselves dealing with their own consequences.
Thomas Chen from Redwood Ventures, who'd been ready to wire $8.2 million before Lily's lawsuit stopped him,
now personally called Lily to apologize and offer funding for Chun Innovations. She'd accepted with terms favorable to her, and Thomas now credited that investment as the smartest decision of his career.
"I almost gave money to a fraud," he admitted in a Forbes interview. Lily Chun didn't just save her own invention.
She saved us from funding a criminal enterprise.
The due diligence failures in this industry are systemic, and she exposed them. 2 years after the courthouse victory, Lily stood in her parents' new restaurant in San Francisco, watching her father greet customers in the space they'd reopened with her financial help. The restaurant that had been stolen from them by a greedy landlord had been reborn, stronger and more successful than before. "You taught me something important," Lily told her father that night, as they sat together after closing. "You told me never to let someone else own what I build." "I didn't forget." Her father smiled, his eyes bright with pride.
"You did more than remember. You showed everyone how to fight back.
How to win." Lily had also established the Chun Foundation for Intellectual Property Protection,
offering free legal assistance to inventors and creators facing IP theft.
Michelle ran it, and in its first year they'd helped 17 people reclaim stolen work. Each victory was another Marcus Whitfield unable to exploit someone's brilliance.
Rebecca Park, now thriving as Chun Innovations Q, sometimes reflected on how different things could have been.
"If Lily had just accepted that severance agreement," Rebecca told a journalist, "Marcus would still be out there, stealing from brilliant women, telling himself he deserved their ideas."
She didn't just save herself.
She saved all of us he would have victimized next. On the 3rd anniversary of the lawsuit filing, Lily received a letter forwarded through her attorney. It was from Marcus, written from prison.
Pages of apologies, explanations, justifications. He was sorry.
He'd been under pressure. He'd made mistakes. He hoped she could forgive him someday. Lily read it once, then fed it into her office shredder. His apology meant nothing. It didn't undo the theft. Didn't erase the racism. Didn't give back the 6 months she'd spent documenting his fraud instead of just developing her technology.
His remorse was just another attempt to make himself feel better about his own choices. She didn't need his apology.
She had something better.
Complete victory.
That evening, Lily spoke at a Women in Tech conference,
addressing 300 young engineers. Many of them had experienced what she'd experienced.
Stolen credit, erased contributions. The constant battle to be recognized for their own intelligence. They tried to erase me because they thought I wouldn't fight back, Lily said. Because they assumed I was too grateful for the opportunity they thought they were giving me. Too intimidated by their connections and confidence. Too focused on the work to notice the theft. She paused, making eye contact with women throughout the audience.
But here's what they didn't understand. Brilliant people notice everything. We're strategic. We're patient.
And when we decide to fight back, we don't just win. We change the entire system that allowed the theft to happen in the first place. The audience erupted in applause, and Lily saw herself reflected in their faces.
The next generation of women who wouldn't be erased, who would document everything.
Who would demand recognition? Who would build empires on their own terms and defend them fiercely? Marcus Whitfield had tried to steal her invention and her future. Instead, he'd created something he never intended. A symbol of resistance. A blueprint for fighting back.
A story that would inspire thousands of people to protect their own brilliance.
The best revenge, Lily had learned, wasn't destroying your enemy.
It was succeeding so spectacularly that they became irrelevant.
Marcus was just a footnote now. A name associated with failure and fraud. Meanwhile, Lily's algorithm was saving lives every single day. She'd won not by becoming like him,
but by being exactly who she always was.
Brilliant.
Strategic, and unwilling to let anyone diminish her worth. And every time a hospital prevented a patient death using her technology, every time a young engineer heard her story and decided to document their own contributions, every time someone chose to fight back against theft instead of accepting it, Marcus Whitfield's attempt to erase Lily Chen failed again.
He tried to steal her legacy. Instead, he'd cemented it forever. If Lily's journey from theft victim to victorious innovator resonated with you, drop a comment about a time you had to fight for recognition you deserved.
And subscribe so you never miss stories of people who refuse to be erased.
Lily Chen learned the most important lesson anyone in a position of vulnerability can learn. Your brilliance is only truly yours when you protect it fiercely, document it thoroughly,
and refuse to let anyone convince you that you should be grateful for scraps of recognition for work you created entirely.
Marcus tried to build his empire on stolen intelligence. Lily built hers on the truth. And in the end, truth doesn't just win, it transforms everything.